So let's move on to the third question now. Remember again, can I just remind you, we're looking at question 25 from the New Era Study Guide, and it is on the web for you to download if you actually haven't got the study guide with you. The question says, should the shareholders be satisfied with the returns, the earnings, the dividends, and the share price? Now, I would suggest that you either underline like I am, or you take highlighters and highlight what the question is asking you, so that you make sure that you're answering each one of those points. And because we've now got 12 marks, we're looking at least 6 points there. So let's have a look and see what we've got. So the first thing, we need to know the returns. However, just take note that we're looking at this now from the shareholders' point of view. Up to now, it's been the directors, the people that have been appointed by the shareholders to run the business. The shareholders have invested in the business in order to make a return. So they want to know that they're getting the maximum profits and maximum value of their shares out of the business. So if we start looking at the shareholders here, we've got, and this is the first thing I'm going to look at over here, the return on the shareholders' equity after tax and the return on the shareholders' equity before tax. Now, if you look back at my video in which we looked at this in depth, I did say to you that it's customary to look at the return on shareholders' equity after tax. That's because tax is a compulsory expense, and the shareholders cannot get any money until the tax has been paid. Some businesses, however, do look at the return before tax. Reason being that the tax is a fixed percentage of your profit. And so, as long as you are using the same, in other words, as long as you're looking at before tax this year and next year, that's fine. Or you must always look at after tax. You've got to be consistent. Now, following what I said before, I am going to look at the return after tax. So first thing in your answer, you are going to quote that you're looking at the return on shareholders' equity after tax. And if you look here, it's gone down. Remember that we've already said over here that we were making less net profit. And that is the reason why this will have gone down. So you need to state that there's been a decrease from 18% to 16% due to the fact that this business was making a lower net profit. Right, now let's look at the next point. They asked us to look at earnings, and I'm going to look at dividends as well at the same time. Now, your earnings per share is based on the same information as the return on the shareholders' equity. This is just in total form, and we're getting a percentage. Here we're looking at the same net profit that the business is making after tax, but we're actually dividing it by the number of shares so we can see how much each share is actually earning. And again, this has obviously gone down. And these two will always be the same. If your return on shareholders' equity has gone down, your earnings will go down because you're making less profit. Now, looking at the dividends on the other hand, your dividends, how much of the profit are they paying out? And so last year they paid 5 cents and this year they paid 12 cents. So there's been an increase in dividends, a decrease in earnings, but an increase in the actual dividends. Now, in order to push your marks up into the 80% in a question like this, you need to go further than just comparing these two. We need to work out what we call the payout rate. What rate, what percentage are they paying out of the earnings? Now, remember we spoke before that a business will make a profit, and that profit, we're looking at profit after tax because that has to be paid. Some of that's going to be paid out as dividends, and some of it will be retained income. And when we're looking at the payout rate, we're saying what percentage of this profit after tax are they actually paying in dividends. So in 20.7 they paid 5 cents out of the 63 cents, which gave us 7.9%. So you could say roughly about 8%. So last year, 8% of this profit at the year was actually paid out as dividends. The other 92% was retained. Whereas in 20.8, they increased the dividends. They paid 12 out of 51 cents, 23.5%. So although they made less profit, less earnings, they're paying out a higher percentage. Now, the question was asking you, should the shareholders be satisfied? Now, obviously, the shareholders are not going to be satisfied with the fact that, first of all, the profits went down, the return went down, that the earnings went down. But are they happy about the dividends? And that really comes down to this. What is important here is what type of shareholder are you? If you're a shareholder who needs to earn money on a monthly basis to supplement your income, you would be happier in 20.8 because there was a higher percentage of the profit paid out. For every share owned, you got 12 cents. Whereas last year, you only got 5 cents. The people that are looking for and the value of their shares, the value of the investment to increase in future years, would actually prefer that smaller amounts were paid out and more was retained, providing that does turn into profits in future years. If a company wants to grow, and I explained this in long length in the video, so I'm not going to do it in detail now, but a business needs capital. And the more that they retain, the more capital, and hopefully, therefore, the more profit that they will be making in future years. However, there's another thing that does affect these shareholders, and that is the actual net asset value of the share. Now, when we look at net asset value of a share, we're talking about the intrinsic or the true value of the share. If this business was to close down tomorrow, if they sold all their assets, they paid off all their liabilities, they would be left over with the owner's equity, or in this case, the shareholder's equity. And that is what this net asset value is telling you. That if this business closed down last year, they would have got 380 cents. It has decreased this year to 310 cents. So the shareholders are definitely not going to be happy about that, because their shares are worth less than they were a year ago. On top of that, the market price has actually decreased. Now, the market price changes on a daily basis, even within minutes, within hours, that this price is changing. But the market price gives you an indication of the demand for the shares. Are people looking to invest in this company? And in view of the fact that this business has got a bit of a liquidity problem, their profits are down, it seems to have affected the confidence of the investors. So overall, your answer, should they be satisfied? Again, you could say yes or no, but you need to substantiate. If you're going to say no, your reasons are because the return has gone down, the earnings have gone down, and you probably will say you're not as happy with the payout rate because it's going to affect your future investment in the business. On top of it, you're not happy with the fact that the true intrinsic value of your shares has gone down and that the confidence of the investors out there has decreased. I would say the more likely answer. But on the other hand, you could say, yes, they should be satisfied. Despite the fact that it's actually gone down, we're living in recessionary times, so the fact that you're still making a profit is actually good. The fact that you actually, there is still a value to the shares over here, and it hasn't gone to absolutely nothing. You still can recover your money. Remember that a shareholder will look at this return that he's actually getting, and we said it was 16%. If he decided he wasn't going to leave his money in this business, but rather take it and invest it in a bank or some other type of investment, what is he going to earn? And the higher the risk investment, generally the higher the return. But if we take a safe investment, we can probably say that he's getting about 8%. So can you see, there's a reason why he could still be happy. It's gone down, but he's still earning more than what he would in another financial institution.